Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Roots of the Valley, a show where we unearth some of the secrets behind the Yakima Valley, which turn it into what you see today. Today I'm actually at the McAllister Museum of Aviation, and I'm with Lynn Harden. He is the executive director of this museum. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks for coming down.
So, first of all, tell me a little bit about some of the history of aviation in the Yakima Valley. Why is it, how did there come to be this aviation strip here?
Well, first of all, aviation started in Yakima. The first flight was only 8 years after the Wright brothers flew.
Really?
And there was a flight in 1911 and 1912, but one of the most important flights was in 1913. That's when a lady named Alice McKee was hired by the Bennett Airplane Company in California to be their first woman demonstration pilot. And so they sent her on a couple of training flights in California, and then she came up to the metropolis of Yakima, Washington, and out at the fairgrounds did her first demonstration flight. When she did that, she became the first woman to fly in Washington State, went on to become the first woman to fly in Oregon, Idaho, and Canada.
Wow.
And if you go to the main Smithsonian Aviation Museum in DC, she's one of 8 women that are featured in early aviation. Started right here in Yakima.
That's really cool that a woman with that much importance to aviation started right here. In our little corner of the world.
Mm-hmm.
This strip outside, before it was paved, it was, well, obviously it was unpaved,
right.
But when did the idea come to pave it and turn it into a little bit of what you see today?
Well, there were some important people over the years. One of the most important to the start of the aviation in Yakima was a guy named Morris McMicken. And Morris had the first business in Yakima in 1925. And he didn't last over the years, but he had a lot of foresight. And he shared his future visions with the town fathers and businessmen, and got the money put aside to put in a small acreage, buy a small acreage and put in a single strip here.
Okay. And I heard that when it first opened, it was a huge celebration. Thousands of people came. Yeah,
nearly 15,000 people showed up. And when you consider what the population of the area was, that was a considerable amount of people. And about 30 aircraft and I think about 600 rides were given that day.
And the first person to actually land, I know it wasn't on purpose, but a person named Jepson, and I heard that he's really important in the history of aviation in general. Can you tell me a little bit about that story?
The night before they opened the airport, there was a plan. Charlie and McAllister and Morris McMicken were going to get up early in the morning and be the first 3 people to land at the airport. And Charlie was going to be the first. And he's on final approach to the airport, and he looks over and here's a plane sitting there. And so they all landed and went over to see who this guy was. And his name was Ellery Jepson. And basically the story went that he was kind of lost and saw this nice airport, so he decided to land here. Well, Ellery Jepson went on to become a commercial pilot, and then finally left there to form his own business, in which he made aviation maps and instrument charts. And about half of the world's instrument flights are done with Jepson charts to this day.
That's really interesting. So when Mr. Jepson landed, was he really confused as to why thousands of people were waiting for him?
Well, yeah, I kind of doubt that. But that was a good story.
Okay, and you also mentioned Charlie McAllister. I know that he's a huge figure when it comes to aviation in Yakima. In fact, he's the namesake of this museum we're in right now.
Yes, he and his brother Alistair and Morris McMicken, all 3 of them learned to fly before there were even licenses. And so all 3 of them, their first pilot's license was signed by Orville Wright, who became the administrator of what would grow into the FAA.
Wow.
And Morris was out here for a few years, and Charlie's brother Alistair was out here for a few years. But Charlie McAllister operated a flying school here in Yakima for over 70 years. It's
Wow.
the longest in the state of Washington. And one of his students, old students from the old days, and one of our founding board members started going through his logbooks and calculating, and found out that during his time here, he'd done a little under 100,000 takeoffs and landings with students.
Wow. 100,000, that's really a lot. So,
Oh, yeah.
do you happen to know how many actual students he trained?
No, we don't. And part of that was that he trained some, but he also had flight instructors that worked with him over the years. And thousands. Up through the 70s and 80s, we still had pilots, commercial pilots, that were flying over and asking about McAllister's, and he's still there. We're really surprised to see he was still doing it.
So 70 years of teaching flight school, that's really impressive. Just because I'm curious, what age did he start?
Well, he got his, he was born in 1903, same year the Wright brothers flew, and built his first glider, 1918, out of a book that he got from the Popular Mechanics magazine. We still have that book.
Wow.
Took his lessons from a guy in Portland named Tex Rankin. We still have the check that he wrote for those lessons, and then came to Yakima and went from there. But in the 30s, he also got a Northwest record for time aloft in a glider. The Yakima Clipper that's over at the Museum of Flight, he was up nearly 9 hours before he lost his wind.
Wow, 9 hours just gliding without an engine?
Yep. It was launched with kind of a bungee cord up at Badger Pocket area of Ellensburg.
So you mentioned that this airport was built in 1927. What did it look like back then?
Well, not much. It was just pretty much a unpaved strip, single strip, but the town really came out to celebrate that, and over the years, obviously, a lot of improvements have been made, and we have one less runway than we had in the 40s and 50s that they used to use for crosswind training.
I know right now the airport is a little bit commercial. There's flights to Seattle. Has it always been a commercial airport, or has it been mostly for training?
No, it's been a commercial airport, and actually it's contributed a lot to the economic development of Yakima. First of all, there's a lot of businesses that do not want to locate in a place that doesn't have access to air travel. And so that's the most obvious contributor. But there's many other things too on this little airport area that we have. We have Triumph Aerospace that makes hydraulic parts for a lot of the commercial aircraft and Lear jets, things like that, actuators that will take your landing gear up and down, for instance. Most of us have probably flown on an airplane that they produce the equipment for. But one of their noteworthy things is they're the exclusive provider of holdback bars for airplanes being launched off from aircraft carriers.
Oh, really?
When you see them launching, they're in kind of a little chocks there, and it will not launch the airplane until there's enough power between the thrust and the catapult to get it flying. Produced here in Yakima.
That's really cool. Is that so that's still being produced right now in
Right.
Yakima? Has there been any other, I guess, companies that produce stuff out of Yakima that's been on a lot of airplanes?
Oh, lots. Pexico, that's on 3rd Avenue, is a major producer of extruded and molded plastic parts for Boeing.
Oh, really?
Overhead bins, armrests, things of that nature they produce right here. So yeah, they've contributed a lot, but there's also some other things too that, for instance, Perry Tech has a training facilities for machinists, so kids that want to get involved with machining, maybe work for the machining company there can get their training right here. There's a lot of aviation training for pilots and mechanics at Central Aviation, and Big Bend Community College, and South Seattle Community College. And so that's a wonderful way of getting your training regionally, but being able to come back and work in the Yakima area. And there's a lot of different aviation-related jobs. University of Washington has an air ambulance service that's based out of here, and they also do the mechanical work on that. We have Yakima Aerosport that produces a small airplane, and also between them and McCormick, they do repair and maintenance and training. And probably one of my favorite businesses is Cub Crafters over here.
Oh, yeah,
which,
sweet.
Yeah, just right next to us. And when Jim started that, he didn't even have a garage to work in, was borrowing a friend's garage and working on one airplane at a time. And now they've grown to, I think there's 5 facilities on the airport.
Oh, wow.
They hire approximately 300 people and produce a new airplane about every 10 working days, making them the second largest aircraft manufacturer in the state of Washington, behind Boeing.
Okay. So you mentioned Boeing a couple of times. Did they start out here and go over there, or do we just make a lot of the parts that go in those airplanes? Yeah,
we make a lot of the parts. Years ago, when I took an Air Explorer group through Triumph, the previous company, it was GE Aerospace at that time. They were making aircraft parts for like 35 different aircraft, and also doing design work for Boeing. So pretty going operation for a lot of years, and contributed also, during wartime.
Speaking of wartime, I know we were speaking earlier, and you said that this airport was a bit of a key area in the States during World War II. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, first of all, going back to Triumph, their parent or root company, Dowdy, during World War II was producing a good share of the hydraulic parts for the Boeing aircraft, like the B-17 bomber. You also had Peritech that had just tried to get started and had to close down, they thought, to wait out the war. And the Army Air Corps found out what kind of facilities they had and contracted them to do training of machinists and mechanics and aircraft and power plant people for the Army Air Corps. And towards the end of the war, when that contract ended, Pan Am took over for a short period of time. It may surprise people to find out that in Yakima, we had a naval air training station.
Really?
Probably because we have so much water. But yeah, over where Central Aviation was, it's where the ambulance service is now. They had about 30 or 40 aircraft and a dozen or so instructors that were doing initial pilot training for Navy pilots. And then Charlie, with his glider experience, he went down to California and trained glider pilots. And several of the flight schools here in the field also were training some of the women that ferried aircraft from the west side to the east coast.
Okay.
And then Civil Air Patrol, we have one of the, I think, 5 initial chapters of Civil Air Patrol that was set up when they saw subs off the East Coast, and the Army Air Corps didn't have enough pilots and planes to patrol it, and so these civil airplane pilots and their small planes were used to patrol the coasts and look for subs.
Okay, so all that was trained right here in Yakima and helped out a lot during the war effort.
Oh yeah.
So, I know that there's been a lot of changes to the airport. Where was the first terminal?
The first terminal was a Northwest terminal, and the terminal was what's currently the Reno's restaurant. Reno's on the runway, just to the south of us. And
oh, really?
That's one of the reasons we were excited when they went in, because it helped preserve that building, and they've done a great job of showing a lot of the aviation history in that building.
Okay. So you mentioned Northwest. I know Alaska Airlines is currently at flying in and out of Yakima Airport. What other airlines have actually had Yakima on their radar?
Oh, it's been an up and down business for planes coming into Yakima, and part of that had to do with the amount of planes and pilots that were available. Right now, the future of Yakima, they have several things going on. The terminal is now undergoing refab to make it more user-friendly for the passengers flying out of Yakima. Robert Hodgins is involved with trying to get one of 4 grants to put in the infrastructure and the charging station for regional electric aircraft.
Really?
And the long-term plan with the electric aircraft is they think it'll get to the point where they'll have pilotless airplanes, much like the self-driving cars. And so that's rather futuristic, but you know, they're trying to get it on the books now and get the infrastructure. With SeaTac getting pretty well taxed out, and even though most of the big growth in SeaTac is from people in the Seattle area, they don't want another SeaTac in that area, and so they're looking at ways of diversifying that pilot load. And with some of the smaller regional airplanes, you may see a return where instead of flying, if you want to fly from here to Wenatchee, instead of going from here to Seattle to Wenatchee, that a small regional electric airplane might be able to fly you from here to Wenatchee directly. And also, as SeaTac plugs up, I think you will see more flights that fly out of Yakima to other major hubs that can absorb that capacity. But you know, there's a lot to be determined in the next 10 years, and we'll see how that goes. I know Pasco has a flight, I think, to Las Vegas and one to California now. And I kind of expect that that's the way Yakima will eventually go as well.
So right now, with all this growth, is the airport essentially planning for technology that hasn't actually been invented yet?
Well, yeah, a little bit. When you're talking about the electric airplanes, understand, I think it's on Payne Field that they have a company that is building an electric airplane. But, you know, it's still in the testing phase, and so it'll be interesting. They're going to put 4 airports in Washington State will have the charging stations for those airplanes when they come about, and hoping that Roger is hoping one of them is ours.
Yeah, well, here's to hoping. Thank you so much, Lynn, for speaking with me today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I learned a lot, and I'd like to think that I know a little bit more about the history of our great valley. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Roots of the Valley. You can see all of our other episodes on KIMA's YouTube page, and also watch out for more episodes coming out on the 1st and 3rd Sunday of each month. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.